So hello and welcome to the Safe Wellbeing Podcast with me, Katie, and I am delighted to have Becky and Mark Horton joining me today from Horton's Funeral Directors. So I've been very excited to do this one actually. So basically I'm just going to hand it straight over to you both for anyone listening or watching our conversation. Who is Becky and Mark, and who is Horton's Funeral Directors for anyone that may not know that?
Go for it.
Okay. My name's Mark Horton. I'm the immediate past president for SAFE. I've been a funeral director now for just short of 30 years, and we've been going on our own for 15 years as an independent funeral director. It started off with myself and my mum and dad, and Becky was in the background, but then 2015, Becky came along and been with us ever since, and Becky's the qualified funeral director. I'm the general dog's body.
That would mean you have to work.
I do work. But yeah, we're a well-established independent funeral director in Hull and the East Riding.
Pretty much, yeah.
I think that was a good introduction for you as well, Becky. And I wanted to start with, husband and wife. How do you both deal with working together and then going home at night? How does that work in terms of, being able to switch off from the job, not taking the work home? Obviously, I'm similar to Mark, where it's mum and dad and then me, so it can be quite difficult because you're all around it. So how do you both deal with that?
I'll probably say that. So because I always said when we opened up, I said, I'm never going to work in the business. And then obviously did. And I kind of said from the word go, if I'm coming into the business, we do not talk about work at home. Where possible, we do not talk about work at home. Obviously, there's the odd little things that be like, oh, did you say you were at the other office tomorrow? And, things like that. But if it's actual kind of business decisions or what are we going to do about this, or we need to do that regulation thing, we do not have those conversations at home. And I'm probably a little bit stricter on that than
You are.
Mark
We used to,
is.
didn't we? Because you'd start discussing things, but then we just said about a year ago, we just said we're not really getting a break from work. We need to have a balanced work, like home life. So we both agreed not to discuss work things.
So normally with a glass of wine in my hand, I go, nope, not talking about it.
Well, that's that. I think it's very often that a lot of us could relate to sitting around the kitchen table, and it could creep in very easily. And do you think having that sort of like set rule has really helped? Headspace be like, no, we're just Becky and Mark at this point. We're not Becky and Mark, the funeral industry, Becky and Mark. And it's made a difference especially in the last year.
Yeah, there's been a lot. And Jack, the eldest son, he worked with us for quite some time as well. And that kind of rule we kind of instilled there as well, didn't we?
Yeah.
And with your mum and dad, but it's like, no, we're having Sunday dinner, no conversation about work kind of thing. Because otherwise if you don't have that break,
don't do anything. You just seem to lose your own identity as such, your own little individual identities where you can't go out and do things anymore like you used to do.
Yeah, I think that's key, especially now with the changes that are happening within the industry as well. There has to be a boundary. We're still human beings at the end of the day. And it kind of brings me on to, struggles and difficulties that that have been faced, through working in the funeral industries, and being able to support one another. That's a different position again, and then seeing one another struggling with certain things, the stresses and the pressures. How do you both look after one another within that?
How do we look after one another?
You have a large glass of wine. What you do? I just go with my motorbike and my truck. But you're more than I am. You're more as a vocal, but I always offload to you, and you let me rant about stuff, don't you?
I think we've been together 18 years this year.
Happy out by now, won't we?
So I mean, even if it was a work colleague, even if it wasn't a husband and wife, and you'd known each other for 18 years, you understand how somebody ticks, don't you? And how somebody's acting in that point is probably reflective of something that might have happened earlier that day or something like that. So you know, certainly one thing we always do when we come back in from a funeral, and if we see each other, obviously we're not always seeing each other. How did the funeral go? Everything all right? Or if you've had arrangement, how did the arrangement go? Everything all right? I suppose it's just that checking in. So that if something has either just got to you a little bit or upset you or got you mad or whatever the case may be, it gives you that opportunity to go, oh, it was fine, but I got real upset about the so-and-so, and by speaking, it kind of gets it out, really, doesn't it? And we can see when each other probably needs that as well, to be able to just not chip, but just kind of
start the conversation.
Yeah.
And I think, like, from doing the podcast, that seems to be a common theme, is talking, and it's something that we've not been able to do more freely at certain times. Certainly, when my 10 years, I've experienced kind of both sides of it. But how, away from the funeral side of things, how do you look after your own well-being, each and together? Like, what's important to you for your switching off, apart from the large glass of wine for Becky? To be clear.
We both have our own hobbies and
interests.
We've
both got you go out with your friends drinking.
Yeah. I do other stuff as well.
Yeah, recycling empty glass bottles. No, you've got your family and friends, as we all see each other. But like I said, Becky's got her friends. She'll go out and have nights out or weekends and see her friends and stuff. And I've got my friends and my motorbike and things. So we still have our separate lives.
Yeah.
But we're still together at the same time.
I think we're quite aware that maybe it's us as people, or whether we've learnt to do it. I'm not sure that we are very good as a team. But if we were in each other's pockets all the time, we'd kill each other. Yeah, well,
we tried.
We would.
You've never tried the cooking, Katie, honestly.
If I had to have a bet on who would, be the one being killed, I could have a really good guess.
No, it does. It's like
she'd kill me with kindness.
Yeah. No, I think we make sure that we have actually time away from each other. I mean, I think certainly for some of my friends, I think sometimes that they might say something or something that, like, oh yeah, it's nice that you can do your thing and he can do your thing, and maybe we probably do it more than some couples that don't work together, because obviously they're not seeing each other for 8 hours of the day, so that time they're spending together, the wanting is just their time. But we do make sure that we do, well, whenever you work, but we do make sure that if we do something together, we try and go and do something.
Yeah.
So, like, we'll try and go out for the day and do something.
We did on Sunday, didn't we? Actually made the effort to physically go out together, do something, not the norm. We had a good day out.
But at the same time, I would like to add a bit of realism to it, that there could be people watching, listening, whatever it may be, that thinks, oh, I work with my husband, or I work with my son, or I find it difficult to offload to my husband, or whatever the case may be. It's the kind of whole social media thing, isn't it? That you see stuff and you're like, oh, everyone's life's wonderful and mine's not. Please don't think we're sat here going, oh, it's always tickety-boo with the best relationship, business, marriage, parents, everything. No, you have hard days, and you just have to, I guess, work through them, really. And it's not always as what people think on the outside, is it?
It's not all roses. We do have, like Becky said, bad days. There are times where we will have an argument, or there'll be something wrong, or someone in the family's not very well. But you just have to put like a little mask on, so the families don't know what's going on. And you come back and you'll just have a few minutes on your own, or have a chat and try and deal with it.
Yeah, and I think that's key, because at the forefront of everything is the families that we represent. And it obviously, I wanted to touch on, you guys are in Hull, and in an area where, unfortunately, this time in 2024, there's publicity that's not been so good, and it's been widely reported. And again, general public, families have got different types of questions. It's a different type of stress that you're dealing with. But I wanted to ask yourselves, like, through that difficult time, because that's a real recent difficult time, how do you yourselves look after yourselves through that, knowing that you're doing the job that you do while having to deal with that negativity from a certain negative story that's in the public face of it, because you guys are the closest to it, and have been heavily involved in making sure that other independents and everybody else within the areas is not the same. So how have you dealt with that? Because it must have been really, you know, unexpectedly stressful, especially how quickly things are coming out about it.
Yeah, I mean, like the rest of the country, all we know is what's been in those couple of press releases. So it's still quite ambiguous what has actually gone on. We have obviously directly been dealing with some families that have had experiences with that company, whether it be previously, so to do with ashes or prepayment plans, and now someone's passed away, so they've come to us and things like that. I think, I don't know about you, but certainly when it all first came out, I think I had a real concern for people's trust in funeral directors in general, but because obviously it was happening in our area, I thought, wow, we could get some heat, and it's fine. So on that Monday morning, we had a team meeting, didn't we? And we said, look, you may get phone calls today from customers we've dealt with in the past asking, how do we know it's their ashes? How have we done this? How have we done that? The only thing I can say, and it sounds a bit big head, and I don't mean it to, was I said to him, just tell them exactly what we do, because luckily
we've got nothing to hide.
We've got nothing to hide, and we knew that we're doing everything as we should. So the side of that didn't stress me out. It was more, do we need to put things in place? Touch wood.
Yes, thank you.
Touch wood. We actually have had the opposite, haven't we?
Yes.
And we actually
we had on social media, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
We did a Facebook post about using a safe independent funeral director and everything we do and as an independent, and the amount of comments, there was a heck of a lot. Was it a couple of hundred? No,
I'd love to say it.
Yeah, well,
we don't have that many followers.
No, there was a lot of people. I don't know, because I don't do social media. There was a lot of people who had positive comments, a lot of families who we've looked after, and that just went above and beyond for us. So it reassured us that what we're doing is the right thing for families.
Yeah, I think it's certainly been scary, and the assumptions that a lot of people have had about it, again, as you say, we only know as much as what's been in the media. But it got me thinking, and again, you guys are as close to it as anyone, but do you think that puts an emphasis on looking after ourselves within the industry to ensure, you know, that if we're looking after our own well-being, there's things in place for us, there's benefits as safe members that, you know, are there, the likes of me being a coach, you know, doing different things, that adds something to us to again make us stand out as safe members, but ensure that certain things aren't overlooked that could cause negative publicity, so to speak.
I do believe, from certainly people we've spoken to and things, the funeral director in question, if you'd have asked anyone, they'd have said, I wouldn't have expected it, really nice people. And it does make you wonder, like you say, we know nothing right now. But, you know, for us as a business, sometimes it can be that you're really busy on funerals just at the time you need to be doing the contracts, just at the time as the CMA has put some new regulation in that you've got to complete, just at the time you need to have your end of year with your accountant. And I think a lot of funeral directors are individuals or smaller companies or family companies. And I think you can quite easily end up going down the rabbit hole and getting deeper and deeper and deeper if you don't reach out for help. Luckily, we've got each other that we can reflect on, and a fantastic team that we work with. But certainly if, you know, somebody's an individual business or it's just them and somebody else, those pressures could start getting on top of someone, and then it becomes you bury your head in the sand, and problems become bigger and bigger and bigger. And like you say, actually reaching out to, even if you don't have, there could be another funeral director close by that you get on with to reach out to, safe care, a family that isn't involved but that you can just offload it to, I think could stop you getting so deep down in that rabbit hole. And unfortunately, I do worry that we're an industry or profession, you know, whatever you want to call it, that is a bit different to every other profession.
Yeah, everybody seems to think we can just deal with everything that comes along because we're funeral directors. And at the end of the day, we're just normal human beings, and we have good, like Becky said, we have good and bad days. And you know, we can't reiterate it, but just speak to somebody. If you feel you can't, pick up a telephone, like Becky said, there's safe care. You can speak to somebody else and that might help. You know, you're speaking to a random stranger on the telephone, but you're offloading your issues and they may help you see, you know, what's the best thing for moving forward.
Yeah, and I think because traditionally we couldn't do that, I want to say that we couldn't because it was frowned upon, as you say, like we were funeral directors, the famous quote is we just got up and get on with it. And I think from generations previously that you were seeing things, like if you're growing up with it, you know, you're used to it and you're accustomed to it. But again, you're still a human being. So off the back of that, like any struggles that, you know, you've had within your time, you know, working every single day of it, like what have you learned from who you both are as individuals working in the business that's allowed you to take a few minutes to look after yourself, to be ready for that next family? Because you quote on your website, our family looking after your family. So it's like you have to look after your own family and yourself to ensure you can be who you are for your family. So how do you both do that separately? I'd love to hear.
You can go first.
I knew you'd say this. Becky's the one who looks after all of us. She's a bit of a you're like a guardian, like you always let us talk and you.
Oh, that's sweet.
And I've been nice to you. Have you got it recorded as well? No, Becky's better at it than me. I'm very much more old school, but I am there to look after people, but Becky's more caring than I am.
But looking after yourself as well, what do you do?
As little as possible. No, looking after myself. I suppose it's just going out with friends, offload, like one of the lads who's a good friend of mine, I can offload to a couple of them, and you know, it's just blokes talking about bloke stuff, which you can't always do with your wife or other friends, you know, and like you'll go talk to your sister or your friends, and that's what you do. It's just getting it off your chest, having a cup of tea, glass of wine for you or four. But yeah, just I'm out tonight with some of the lads who we got with the Jolly Boys on motorbikes, bless us. So we're all going out for a meal, and we just take the mickey out of each other, and we just offload, and it's a form of therapy. I'll say for men is taking the mick.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, well, men deal with it differently, where women will sit down and talk.
But not all men. All men deal with everything.
No, all men different. Yeah, but it's just talking and offloading. That's how I do it. You know, either having a laugh with my friends, going out on the bikes, doing, you know, popping out in the truck or whatever.
Yeah. Do you feel that, you know, you're going out tonight, you know, you have your band and everything, and you've had your form of therapy, does that then provide you with energy coming back into work tomorrow?
You're going to say no. I would say yes, but Becky reads my moods differently. Becky knows when Mark gets tired, and I'm like a little child. I go, no, I'm not tired. But yeah, I mean, getting a little bar of chocolate or some Haribo's, you can't beat that. You know, it's a little bit. We're all differently, but I'm very much of I won't see if I'm in a grumpy mood. I just think everything's okay. But you'll point out quite regularly, won't you, that I'm being moody.
But that sounds
that's how we all are.
It's again, like what I said at the beginning, like such a unique position, because if you didn't have Becky, you know, being that way, you could offload, where you could talk, that, you know, it could build up, and it could be, you know, you could be sitting differently. Like, could you then be out with the guys having a meal tonight and be able to talk, you know, be thinking about it differently? So, you know, a lot of credit goes to Becky, but that's, I think, for anyone that, you know, works husband and wife or works with family, that again, that's a super unique position that as an independent we are and we have. And that's really good, because that's Becky looking out for you, but allowing you then to look out for yourself by just checking in and reminding you. And that seems to be key for dealing with the stresses and the pressure. But what about for you, Becky?
Why? There's a running thing here. Becky's a non-alcoholic drinker.
I think for me, having time away from here is what helps, you know, just even in, you know, at a weekend that I'm seeing my nieces and taking them to the beach, whatever it may be, or I'm seeing friends or whatever. If I'm involved doing an activity, that really is good for me. If I'm just away from here and I'm not doing something, I'm just at home and I'm putting the washing
Housework.
away, or I'm whatever the case may be. I'm really bad at being able to switch my brain off.
Yeah.
And I need a distraction, I think, sometimes to switch my brain off. Before we go on, we're lucky now, we do have another funeral director, so we can go on holiday together, which is brilliant.
That's huge.
I'm terrible before we go. And
I tell them all the time.
because I feel guilty for leaving them, and have I done this, and will I do this? However, I'm actually quite good that literally the next day, and it's really bad, but I kind of go, done now, gone,
But
bye.
there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
We've got a good team, haven't we?
Need us.
Yeah, we've got a good team, and we know we can rely on them, and they know we're there at the end of a telephone.
And I do speak with my sister and Julie, who works in our office. She's actually a family friend, but a really good friend of mine as well. So even when I'm in the office, Julie is kind of my little therapist that just
Yeah.
annoying me. It might be him that's annoying me. You know, I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And you get it out of your system. And this is gonna sound, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm gonna say this anyway. I think wrongly, women are maybe, because society over the years has done it or said it, are probably better at speaking than men can sometimes be.
Can't get away with edgeways, that's why.
It's hard for me to say. No, but I think there is like a stigma, isn't there, about like men and talking, and that's why it's great that there is these like male clubs now and things like that, where they can go and talk to other men, because I think, unfortunately, and again, maybe I'm wrong saying this, but it is a fact, it is funeral directing is a male-dominated industry. There is a lot more women that are now in it, but it is a male-dominated industry. So technically, we're talking about a vast majority of people that, I'm not saying it's the rule, but along the way, those men maybe aren't as good at having communication, even if they do have someone there to talk to. It could be that their wife's there. It could be that a son's there, or a good friend or something, but they might just not be that good at talking. And in a way, I kind of make you talk, don't I?
If I get a chance, yeah.
No, but I do. I am a
nag
big good
me.
booker. Yeah, I do.
Nag me. What's wrong? What's wrong? And I'm like, sometimes I just don't want to offload, or I don't want to say things.
Which is fine.
So, which is fine, yeah. I mean, we've got a local vicar, priest, who does one of these like local man's clubs, and I went along for a couple of weeks because he said, "Oh, come along, see what it's like." And when you go and you listen to some of the blokes offloading their issues, you can sit there and you think, "Mine's nothing compared to them." And you sit there and some of the other blokes, and you think, "Blooming hell, that's that's not even an issue compared to some people." But in their own individual little world, it's a big issue. And sometimes just talking to people, like Becky said, it's offloading, and it does help them. You have a cup of tea and a sticky bun. And as a company, we went and provided some tea and coffee and biscuits for them. And they was grateful. And, it was an insight for me to go and see how they offload, especially men.
Yeah, and I think because we, regulation coming into Scotland, and then yourselves in England and Wales following suit, it's going to provide, different ways of, keeping everything in where there is more of a need to offload. But I think Becky's got it right. We are a changing industry with more women coming in, but I came into the industry being completely male dominated 10 years ago, and if I'd even mentioned the words well-being, mental health, anxiety, depression, I struggle, it would not have gone down as well as it could do now. But I want to go back to Becky. Becky, if I asked you to sit in a room for 10 minutes and not do anything, would you struggle to do that?
Absolutely. That'd kill me.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I kind of want to do that.
Yeah.
Like in my head, it could just be like, Mark's out tonight. So like my head goes, yes, Mark's out. And I actually haven't got a plan after a meeting after work. So I can go home, do the washing, sit down and watch Bridget.
Put your head in a bowl.
I've got that to watch as well.
Brilliant. However, I'm real bad at doing it. And I know I'll get home and I'll put the washing away, and then I'll tidy up in there. And then I'll think, oh, I'll just do that before I do some tea. So actually, I'll end up having my tea at about 9 o'clock. And then, but once I do sit down, if I've got a distraction, I'm good. But no, if you just sat me there, I'm terrible. I'm terrible.
Yeah, I think it would be good, you know, that I always say if you start with 5 minutes and start building it up.
Yeah.
So 5 minutes, and I can't remember where, I think it was at another podcast that I heard it, and it was called the 5 minute movement, where they ask you to do like a little exercise with like 10 body weight squats. You then breathe for 90 seconds. You then sit with your feet flat on the floor so you feel nice and grounded. Your hands on the top of your legs at your knees, and just breathe. Once you've done 90 seconds, then take 30 seconds, just sort of shake it off and do it again. And I would love for you to go away and do that, because I think it would, you know, taking my funeral director's hat off, putting my coaching hat on, as I think you would benefit so much. And I find it really interesting, because I think as an industry we do need to be distracted a lot because of how focused we need to be, but yet at the same time we still need to breathe. So I find it really interesting you saying that you've got to be distracted all the time, because I think there could be a lot of women that relate to that, you know, because as a woman, a lot of women go home and they do the washing, they do the, you know, all that sort of thing. And I just find that really interesting with the 5 minute thing. I think it brings me on to the last point of, you know, any advice, tips or messages for anyone listening, watching our conversation that may help them. And I want to do it slightly differently. So I want to have one from you, Mark, one from you, Becky, and then something that, as Becky and Mark Horton, you would say to anyone listening.
Go fast.
So Mark, start with Mark. I'll put him on the spot.
Start with me. Oh, God,
no. Becky, I'll put him on the spot.
Oh God. See, I don't know, because I'm put on the spot. I'm not quite sure. What would I say to people? Advice: learn to talk, learn to offload. You know, don't be frightened to ask for help. It's not going up and saying, please help me. It's just, you know, having a chat with people, letting people get it off your, you know, like I say, that there's phone calls, that there's phone lines, that there's people you can talk to. I've done it before. I've got nothing to hide. I've had a couple, you know, moments at times, and I when I've needed help, and I didn't really want to discuss stuff with Becky. So yeah, I've been there. I've done it. That, you know, that there's nothing wrong with it. You know, you put your big boy pants on and you have to deal with it, rather than letting it get, like Becky said, go down the rabbit hole. Once you put your head in the sand, you just deeper and deeper and darker. And excuse me, we've heard it in the past, and friends of mine have been in the same places, and it's just talking, being there for people, you know, and having people being there for you, and don't be afraid of it. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. We're all human. We all go through it. It's just not everybody admits it.
I love that. I think that was empowering. I was feeling the power coming to me there.
You vote for me. President again.
You've used mine. I was going to say problem shared's a problem halved. You've used it. No, I'm joking. What would I say?
Glass of wine.
For anyone listening, Becky does not have a problem with alcohol. Just Mark.
No, she's got 2 hands and 1 mouth. That's her problem.
What would I say? I'd say probably forget about everyone around you. Ignore everyone. Don't worry about what their opinion is. And I'm the worst to say that, because actually the majority of things I do in my life, I'm worried about what someone else is going to think of me or something. So it's fine. I know, I realise I can spoon out the sugar, but I'm not very good at taking it myself. But don't be thinking I can't go and speak to them because they're, if it's let's say another company, they're a really big company and they're doing loads of funerals and they'll think I'm ridiculous. No, they weren't. They're a person. Remember, all of these people that you meet in your life are also vulnerable. They also cry. They also hug their family if they're blessed to be surrounded by family. They also make a cup of tea like you make a cup of tea in the morning. And they also get lost at an airport like everyone gets lost at an airport. Do you know what I mean? It's like we are all just people,
humans,
and the people we're sat arranging funerals with. If you go to a counsellor, that person you're talking to, the person you've just gone and bought your milk at the shop this morning, we're all just people with our own individual problems. And actually, I think if we could all just realise that a bit more, it'd probably do the world a great thing, wouldn't it, really? We
actually said, just to interrupt, we actually said regarding the funeral director in Hull where the incident happened, if he'd have come to is ourselves or some of the other FDs who we spoke and said, I'm struggling, can you help me out, with the deceased and stuff. The SAFE members who we spoke to, they've all said we would have done it. There's nothing wrong. And if someone did come to us and said, can you help us out? We'd be there to help them out, to look after the deceased and stuff. It's not a problem. There's, like you say, if someone comes and asks for help, that's a big thing to do.
At the start, however.
At the start, yeah. It's not going to come at the end when I've got a few people.
Not when it's too late. Yeah.
No, but if someone is struggling, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
Definitely do it. Takes a big person to do that.
Yeah, a strong person to do that.
Yes.
Because it's the start of their journey. But what about something together for anyone listening, like a message or any tips for anyone listening that jointly together you've learned over the years or that would help anyone going forward?
What we learned.
Becky's always right.
What we learned. I would say, as a couple, communicate
more. I knew you'd say
our
that.
time together, but also have our time separately, because
Yeah.
with all this many people in the world, you can't just meet someone and think that's it, we're connected forever, and everything we always decide on runs in line. Of course it doesn't. We're individuals. He'll say something I don't agree with, and he'll say, do you know what I mean?
But at the same time, it's like Becky will say to me, why don't you just think about booking, going out for a meal one night, so you don't have to do tea. Spend time together. So I am taking out tonight for KFC because I got a free voucher come through the post box.
Cheat that. Yeah.
I was going to say something,
I
but
think
that one.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect way to end it. I think, it's nice to keep the theme going of, talking and the safe kind of messages stronger together. And I think everything, again, publicly that we, get put through and things like that as well, while the massive changes that are happening just highlights the importance ever more, to be honest. I think there's no other way to say that. But just thank you both for joining me today. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
No, not a problem, Katie, not a problem at all. Thanks for inviting us to the podcast.
You're welcome.